Ladies and gentlemen, moving on to the next session. Session number 2 on building customer experience and social norms around data strategy and digital propositions aligning with the new normal. We have with us on the panelist, Mr. Aslam, Managing Director, BankT&D Consult UK, Dr. Mahomed, Ziyaad, Assistant Professor and Associate and Director, E-Learning and Exec Education, INCEIF, Mr. Prasanna Siriwardena, Chief Information Officer, LOLC Technology Services, and Mr. Riza Wadood, Country General Manager, IBM Sri Lanka. Joining them on the panel, this is going to be moderated by Mr. Shiraz Sideek, Director of Adl Capital Private Limited. Mr. Shiraz, over to you.
Thank you, Zaid, for the introduction. A personal welcome to this eminent group of panelists who are joining in from different parts of the world. We are indeed privileged to have this team who are all with global experience even beyond banking, making my job as a moderator more difficult. Our topic for discussion today is building customer experience and social norms around data strategy and digital propositions aligning with the new normal. With every crisis brings not only negative impacts, but also creates new opportunities. However, it requires a new way of thinking and quick adaptation to the new realities. The banking sector was already experiencing disruption through fintech initiatives. But with the current crisis, I believe the whole disruption process has been expedited. Customers who have never tried to experience digital services were suddenly expected to do digital spending or digital purchasing, and the banks were stretched in this new reality and were pressurized to adapt fast to take advantage of new opportunities. Working from home became a new normal, with more people working from home on new devices, new browsers, a new IP address. The customer who thought you knew was now almost unrecognizable in the digital space. How confident are you that you can connect with each customer online today? From a customer perspective, customers are happy to be offered fewer channel options if they can get their query resolved first time. Very few digital channels would close the last mile. They often end up providing you with information support, but to get your query resolved, you will have to talk to a human via a staff-assisted channel. This customer experience needs to change in the new normal. Having said that, we'll move on with the panel. I would like to request Riza first to start the ball rolling by asking to share his expertise on the importance of a strong digitization-based strategy at a corporate level and its alignment to success of any transformation initiative towards reaching customer expectations. Riza, over to you.
Thanks, Shiraz. Assalamu alaikum and good evening to everyone. So I think that's a very, very valid topic at this moment. If you really look at digital, probably has become the most widely used term in the last couple of months. Probably even the skeptics have now understood that value of the whole value of digitization. Right? And if you really look at it with the new normal, the emerging digitization has become a very valid topic in every organization, in every boardroom. Right? On the other hand, customers who were more comfortable with more of a personalized service and avoided the digital channels have now realized the value and will probably latch on to it. Right? So there is a huge change coming in front of us. Right? So as the topic highlights, digitization can drive success, but this is not easy and cannot be implemented in an ad hoc manner. It needs to be well thought out and the right stakeholders involved. And I think a lot of the panelists and presenters spoke about that in more detail. Let's step back and understand. Now, when we say digital strategy, what do we really mean? Right? to me, it's a plan basically that uses digital resources to achieve one or more objective. That's from a definition perspective. In this particular case, right, where we are looking at how we can address the changing customer expectation. And similarly, you will have other digital strategies, like say, for example, towards marketing, productivity, cost optimization, employee engagement. So there'll be so many things happening. So we'll focus on the customer expectation part of it, right? Now, if we really look at, when we look at customer expectations and the experience that we want to create, what are some of these expectations and experience considering the banking industry, given that this is more focused around the banking? Firstly, I think most would agree, people look for convenience, right? Then we can look at something like omni-channel experience they want. Whichever channel they go, they get the similar level of service and they're able to interchangeably use it, right? They want better value for money, right? They want to operate at any time and anywhere, right? And most importantly today, people are wanting to be treated very uniquely, right? They want to say, okay, treat me as me, don't treat me as a segment, right? So when we really look at it, the whole paradigm about customer is changing, right? To drive a digital strategy to successfully align this changing customer expectation and experience, we need several forces to come together, right? Of course, people, process, and technology, right? And most importantly, the vision for what we want to do with digital strategy, right? In the interest of time, I'm not going to focus on all the forces, but I'll focus on the technology piece. If we look at in general, we can see that most of the banks have invested in all the core applications that are required to run the bank, right? You would agree they would have their core banking, internet banking, the ATM, all of these things, most of the banks would have, right? And they would have gone through multiple upgrades and so on. They probably have, right? Now, this is, digitization to a certain extent, which, is about, I would say from a percentage, you could say 70 to 80% of digitization. But is that sufficient to basically meet the changing customer expectations in the future, right? And most of these applications, when we look at it, are relatively structured, right? And also that's the easier part of the implementation. The balance 20 to 30% is the unstructured and the difficult part, since we don't find off-the-shelf products that can cater to this part of the requirement. Therefore, it needs to be envisioned and built. And that's what really brings the differentiation to the bank. Right. The 80% that we spoke about is relatively fixed and structured. And change is difficult because we are dependent on a third-party vendor. And they generally don't want to change a lot of things because they want to maintain certain amount of standardization across, right? And we also wouldn't want to customize it too much because then it becomes very difficult for us to upgrade when we go on, right? So the 20% is the constantly evolving part that we need to really look at when it comes to the digital strategy, right? This 20% will help the digital strategy towards the customer expectations and creating that customer experience that we are really intending, right? And this layer needs to be keeping up with the changing customer demands, right? The future customer will not look for a bank, but convenient banking services. For example, a customer looking to buy a house may not come for a loan. Instead, we'll expect the bank to provide all the services required to buy a house, including probably shortlisting of properties, right? Based on their needs and all other services that go with it, right? Therefore, technology needs to cater to this new business scenario. This scenario will need banks to build ecosystems. So it's going beyond the boundaries of a bank, because now you will need to have partnerships with third parties to offer these end-to-end services. Therefore, we will need to be able to integrate multiple platforms to be able to offer these end-to-end services. Now, in a technology sense, we call this a platform where banks can envision and will help build the required scenarios to drive the strategy and enable the institutions to launch new products and services to their customers in a relatively short time. Because here we are not looking at implementing solutions over years, but we are looking at bringing products and services to customers within probably weeks. Right. So a good example of a platform is, example, if you take Uber, right, which I think we spoke about, right? Initially came out with only the taxi app, now has moved to several other services. And this is enabled by the concept of a platform, right? Similarly, Amazon, right, started off with selling books and electronics, and now into multiple things by leveraging the power of the platform and the ecosystem. Even taking a local context, right? If you take PickMe, right, which is pretty much a taxi app that we all used. But during the lockdown, we were able to leverage that even to buy our groceries, right? So this is what the power of the platform plays, and the ability for us to bring certain new services and products to a customer in very quick time. So as I mentioned earlier, technology is only one component of this transformation, right? Technology today, like automation, API, or the integration part, the AI, artificial intelligence, the business process management, the app development, the application development, analytics, all of these things with the help of cloud is making it very easier to build such platforms. So if you really look at what we are in, is that for us to be able to address these changing demands, we need to be able to adapt. To adapt, we need a platform, right? So what we are seeing today in several parts of the world and even in Sri Lanka, most of the organizations are looking at how they can build a platform so that they can really drive the change that is expected by the clients. So with that, I will hand over back to Shiraz and take any questions during the Q&A and probably elaborate if required.
Thank you, Riza, for that interesting discussion and setting the tone for today's afternoon's discussions, the panel. Many of the topics that has been put up by Riza probably will be taken up in more detail as we go along. Being on the same subject of digital strategy with customer expectations, I would like to focus on Dr. Ziyaad to bring in a very different perspective to this discussion, primarily from his engagements in Sharia committees of two large-scale institutions with global presence, as well as with a very strong exposure in the educational field. In this respect, Dr. Ziyaad, considering the large-scale customer expectations on seamless and secure financial services, what key considerations and best practices would you like to highlight that would ensure the digital strategy of any financial institution is ready for post-COVID-19 world? Doctor, for you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen, Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here to discuss these issues of digitization, etc., with such an esteemed panel and our honorable moderator, Brother Shiraz. To get into the heart of the matter, there are two aspects, as you've mentioned, that we can cover, one from the educational side and the other from financial services. Now, maybe I can share a bit of an experience from the educational side. I am at INCEIF. INCEIF is a university dedicated to Islamic finance and postgraduate qualifications in Islamic finance. And we do offer the online courses in the master's program. But the face-to-face program, our masters in MSc and PhD, they, take care of foreigners and locals that we have to provide lectures to face-to-face right here in Malaysia. And our professors, alhamdulillah, are quite seasoned and quite mature. And students were concerned that because of the seniority of our professors, that digitization process might be a challenge. But as was mentioned even with the previous speaker, there is no choice. If you want to survive, if you want to continue and meet condition, then you have to step up to the challenge. And I must say that in the experience of training the senior professors and getting them to go digital, although it was quite a challenging process for some, they just pushed forward and moved into this completely digital platform. So what we're saying here is that it is not just about the technology and the digital readiness from a tech perspective that a university or educational institution must have, but it is also that willingness from the salesperson, in our case, from the technical lead, from the professors, from the lecturers, that actually have to deliver this content through a platform staring at a screen. And if you've lectured for 30 to 40 years face-to-face, used body language and debates to transfer the knowledge of some issues, then doing it over a screen is a completely different ballgame. And we've been doing it for 3-hour sessions, 2-hour sessions at a time. And believe me, where you have to coax your students into actually responding to questions, which is so difficult. How do you present case studies? And we found some of our professors were quite innovative. They opened up 2 Zoom accounts, one with the whiteboard and the other one with their face and audio. And they did it themselves, just trying to get the best out of the situation. So to sum it up on the educational side, universities have no choice. They have to move fast. They have to be prepared from a digital side, but also from a skills and willingness side. It's a lot to do with attitude. Skills we can acquire, but we need the correct attitude to be able to acquire those skills and be able to use them effectively. We know of many institutions that are actually struggling to move into this online new digital world because they've not been exposed to it. And even curriculum has to change from the manner in which you structure your curriculum, the research that a student has to conduct. All of this is quite different. Very quickly from the bank side, conventionally, I'd just like to comment on the new approach. An example of it is Barclays 25 Eagle Labs. Now here they've converted a series of closed branches in the UK into entrepreneurial shared work scenarios. And they offer mentoring, they have networking, and now it's a very different approach. It's an advisory for SME banking. So this kind of approach is encouraging a new kind of word, which is called phygital, physical and digital. They are physical, they are part of coffee shops, they are part of shopping malls, but not in branches. They are just integrating into new workspaces. They are basically physical, but all of the back office functions are completely digital. Even the opening of the account is not done at the premises any longer. It's now online. So banks are experimenting with new ideas. And in a post-COVID world, there's not going to be much of a choice. I only want to highlight in 1 or 2 minutes from an Islamic finance perspective, what would be the customer expectations and internal processes. So RegTech, this is regulatory technology, needs to be a lot more seamless. Right now, if I want to open up a bank account, and I won't name a bank, the bank, I've really had this experience. I had to go into the bank branch, which I dislike doing, like most of us, I'm sure. I sat there for 1 hour going through the KYC process, the anti-money laundering process, etc. This is not practical. This is not doable in post-COVID world. It has to be online. And biometric approaches to recording the know your client requirements and identification, they will have to simply become a seamless process for clients very quickly. But what about Sharia compliance? Because Islamic finance has Sharia compliance at its core. How do you achieve this? Well, now smart contracts, digital platforms that look at artificial intelligence, which we will talk about tomorrow, inshallah, as well, looking at how LCs and trade all is now becoming digital using blockchain methodology to actually allow transparency and trust. Remember, a bank requires, for customers to trust it, and a bank needs to trust the client. This can be achieved through digital technology like blockchain and digital networks, decentralized networks that will assist in this. So there's a lot more to say, but I'm going to leave it there. I'm sure that our esteemed panelists have much more to contribute as well.
Thank you, Dr. Ziyaad. That was a well-articulated discussions. I like the point on tweaking digitization for customers' experience. Yes, I think that's what we are going towards. In fact, your discussion, it takes us to the next subject that we are going through. As a broader impact of the COVID-19 and the recovery process is the need to social distance ourselves in public environments as a safety precaution to oneself as well as for others around. This health requirement has necessitated all industries around the world to revise and redesign human interaction or touch points to comply with social distancing specifications. Banking and finance industry is no exception, where there is still large-scale human interface at the ground level. However, since requirement of social distancing is now a reality for the industry, there is a rise in demand for digital solution for public and customers, like what Dr. Ziyaad was enlightening. Given the wide experience you have in the business and digital transformation world, Aslam, if I may ask you your opinion on how financial institutions can transition through COVID-19, especially the need for social distancing, without jeopardizing customer satisfaction and compliance requirements, as well as considering the demand for digital transformation. Aslam, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me? Shiraz, can you hear me? Shiraz, can you hear me?
Yes, you're very clear. Go ahead.
Okay, very good. Okay, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I am happy to be with all of you and learning from each other. Let me start by saying that we have no prior experience of anything like COVID-19. We have never seen it before. And a lot of us talk about post-COVID-19, and I at that time chuckle and say, we don't know what this is like right now. It is very difficult to actually guess what it is going to be like after it is over. But I think let's first look at what all of us are trying to do, and all of our companies and organizations and families are trying to do. As a defensive measure, we are trying to suffer the least from it. And we want to suffer less than our competition. We want to suffer less than other people in the society and so on, because we want to come out ahead. On the more positive side, we actually want to take full advantage of the challenges that it brings and actually do things that we have never been able to do before. So this is a very healthy tension. And I'm going to, after having made this general remark, going to focus on the two things, which is the things that Shiraz wants me to focus on, and that is customer satisfaction and compliance. How do we take care of these things in the COVID world? I'm not an authority on the subject. We are all learning from each other. I've learned quite a few new things since this morning. But let me start by saying that there's no need to jeopardize any one of these. You can have a better customer experience, and you can definitely have a better compliance culture coexist with COVID-19. And in fact, all day since this morning, everybody has been giving us the good news that we, our families, our customers are all adjusting to the new reality. The adaptation is fantastic. So I personally will work on the hypothesis that not only customer experience and compliance don't have to be jeopardized, they actually can be improved. And both can be enhanced while the pandemic is still around. And hopefully by the time pandemic is over, we will have learned new tricks and we are not going to give up the new positives that we have learned through all of that. So let me start with two concrete personal examples. First, we have a technology team of about 25 people. I used to see them once every 3 months, 6 months. I would talk to some of them every day, some of them every 6 weeks, every 3 months, and so on. You would not believe that I now, sitting in my living room or in my study, meet 25 programmers every morning in the morning huddle. Everybody is on Zoom. We are all together. We are all talking to each other. We are all telling each other what we do. And the exchange that takes place is just fantastic. In that half hour, in every morning at 9 o'clock, I know what everybody is working on and they have told each other what their interdependence is. That kind of communication never existed before. Secondly, our customers, when we now tell them that we want to come see them, they tell us, no, stay where you are because we think you can really help us very well from remote rather than come and shake hands with us. So don't come. So what I'm finding is that the acceptance at the customer level is high and the acceptance within our team level is high. Now, I'm not trying to portray COVID-19 as a blessing from God. It is a difficulty. It is a problem. But what I'm trying to portray is that human beings are very ingenious and they adjust to the new reality better than you can say the word mom. So we are adjusting very fast. We will adjust better. We're going to learn a lot of positive things and we are going to learn things that we wanted to do but never could do before. So let me now address the two specific questions that Shiraz wanted me to focus on. Customer satisfaction. It can be easily achieved. Banks have an opportunity to expedite service delivery, offer services better, cheaper, faster. Technology can take over the mundane, repetitive tasks where we can actually leave the staff free to work with other human beings, to deal with them, to have interpersonal relationship with them, rather than remember which document to ask for and how many places the customer is going to sign. So as one of my teachers talks about, the fact that COVID will allow us to take the robots out of humans. We had become robots. In the name of compliance and customer satisfaction, we had been taught to do 1,000 things like a robot. And now it's time for technology and machines to take over that robotic, boring stuff from us and leave us for handling the more less mundane and more enjoyable interaction with people. A lot of speakers talked about simplifying processes. I don't have to do things the old way. And when I simplify processes, I can reduce the cost. And also, by definition, when I reduce the cost, I can also reduce the fee that I charge to my client. I can mine data better now. I can learn from the data that I have and cross-sell my services to the client. Previously, I had to work hard to learn cross-selling. Now I can easily do that. So I think I am here to present the positives from a customer experience point of view. Let me address the compliance side. They used to say that you should build compliance in your processes rather than inspect compliance. So you should not have to inspect compliance, you should expect compliance. COVID-19 and the adaptability of digital technology now allows us to exactly do that. It allows us to have fully documented audit trails. In the past, when the central bank inspector came to visit you, you had to give him your paper files. If you have processes well automated and well documented and built for compliance, you can give him the password and say, go and to your heart's content, check what I have done. It allows online storage of documents, which means the paper can totally disappear. It allows you to have subsequent reviews very easily done. How many financial institutions have paid tens of millions, if not billions of dollars in fines for mis-selling? Intelligent process automation and the technology, whether it is artificial intelligence or augmented intelligence, now can help you make sure that you're not going to missell. Does Uber allow you to take a wrong turn when you want to go from place A to place B? No, it tells you. The Google map tells you instantly. And even if you do take the wrong turn, it tells you how to get back to that. So equivalents of that are happening in technology right now, and they are being implemented as we speak. Lastly, and most importantly, I will say that COVID-19 has done us a big favor, and that is the digitization of services has become more acceptable. The young people were yuppies and hippies, and they were always in for online services and so on. But old dogs like me now accept the technology much faster, better, and I now have come to expect that. And I think people will now have less undistracted time on their hands. You and I will have more time because the processes and the boring tasks the technology will take over, and we can have the more enjoyable work of dealing with other human beings. So let me finish by stating an important fact. Having said everything that I said, let me tell you that human beings are social animals, okay? Social interaction will never be taken over by the machines. Human touch can never be digitized. We're not going to shake hands. Maybe we will wave at each other and say hello. But when I say human touch, it's being in the same room. I think the audio-visual interaction is the next best thing we can do. And this webinar is a proof of that. Last time I was with you all was in Maldives, where I had to travel for 2 days. 1.5 days, I'm exaggerating. I had to travel back in 1.5 days. I had to change flights, 4 flights. I spent a lot of money. And I actually am getting as much out of the content. I'm not getting the social interaction, but believe me, I'm not thirsty for content of your presentations because you're all making very, very good presentations. Is this perfect? No, it's not. Is this preferable? For me, it absolutely is. So with that, I'm going to hand you over to Shiraz by stating that both customer satisfaction and compliance can be enhanced in the post-COVID and COVID period through digitization rather than us worrying about them suffering. Back to you, Shiraz. Sorry if I took too much time.
No problem. Thank you, Aslam, for that eloquently sharing your experiences in your world of expertise. Going further, focusing on more in the context of Sri Lanka and the directives given by the authorities on post-pandemic operation within the financial institutions. Prasanna, in your opinion, what level of impact has it made on digitization initiatives ongoing and planned for future in this part of the world?
Thanks, Shiraz. Hope I'm audible. It's an honor to be here. Actually, let me give you some real life experience and examples how, like, as Sri Lankans, we face this situation. Like, no difference than the rest of the world, Sri Lankan authorities also like action on this precautionary step in serious manner, like social distancing. Like, but like actually that was one of the key component or key steps that used us by the government to put this situation under control. Actually, government authorities issued some directives also related to this, so especially on social distancing, and they were carrying out like large campaigns on awareness campaigns, social media campaigns, and it was enforced by the tri-forces. It was like in a good, like very visible, and people are aware of it. Initially, it was related to like it was in a total lockdown situation, and subsequently it was lenient to a certain level until the situation got to manageable state. Actually, during the lockdown situation, people to moving out of the house was restricted in a great extent, and for that, government authorities made some arrangement to deliver the daily essentials to the doorstep. To continue their normal life. But while these things are happening, the people who like corporate government who were ready for this kind of a situation, I mean, as Aslam said, we never expected this, but some people like some organization was ready with their digitalization strategies. So they use their e-commerce platform, using this opportunity to expand their online ordering. Like then some people was doing extra bit, and similar to these platforms, financial institutes also like somewhat ready, and they are making the same pace. So when it comes to financial institutes, they provide option to carry out their online payment through the internet payment gateways. Like some issues the GPRS enable POS, and it helps them to, in some areas, it helps them to avoiding cash as well. Further, like some banks was giving a mobile ATMs. They were carrying the ATMs in their trucks, and they were going around the cities to people to get the withdrawals done on closer to their residence. Most interestingly, some banks was ready to deliver the cash also. So I mean, people who were ready, they were making the best out of it. For example, like we also have a platform called iPay. Like we managed to expand our installation penetration in a larger scale. So it used to fund transfers, bill payments, and we had the marketplace. So I mean, people who were ready, they make the opportunity into a larger scale. Actually, we came to a point like one of the payment apps. We are one of the best rated payment app in one point of time during this lockdown situation. So one of the key facilities announced by the government, actually it was regulated, I mean, for the enforced to the government organizations also, work from home. So they officially announced, okay, you don't have to don't come to the office, work from home. Like, but how many people were ready? How many organizations were ready? Will you be able to operate your back office from home? So people who was ready, like some organization, and if you take our organization as an example, we operate entire back office from home. Importantly, we managed to operate the call center from home, because we were like, even though we were not expecting this kind of situation, we wanted to give the facility for the user or the employees to flexibility of their work schedule, so they can work from home when they are like not fit to come to the office. So there were like, I mean, once the situation got settled down a little bit, there was a situation like people were coming into the branches. But when the social distancing rules was enforced, like we were thinking like, what shall we do? So we had to go for the virtual setup points. Like when the customer comes in, they sit in the virtual station, they talk to the back office people in the branch, and they were addressing their need. So customer has to go to the either counter or the customer support agent only when it's really required, or deposit money. Sometimes deposit money also, like it was the safe, I mean, all the electronic fund transfers we used, but when it's becoming the deposit, some people, like if you take the segment, like they want to do, I mean, people interaction. So, but we limit the interaction through the virtual points, and they went to the cashiers only to give the money, and they're out of the branch within no time. So, but we use some, so I mean, traditional mechanism as well. But overall, I mean, some organizations were ready, some were not ready. In light of this situation, attention towards potential of digital technology initiatives and financial sectors was increased drastically, because by the time they realized, okay, we need to adapt into the situation, some managed to do it with very little effort, some were not. So people who were making this digitalization or these initiatives kept on their, I mean, strategies, but kept in it hold, like they paid a big price. But some organization made the best out of it and used this opportunity and expanded their footprint in the market. So there was a huge impact, people who was not ready, but people who were ready, like they made the best out of it. So hope like people will, I mean, the organization will think twice, realign in their strategies, and get ready, even not for this kind of a situation, to give the flexibility to the customers and the employees. If they are ready for that, it can be used in any way. So, I mean, I was just trying to give you the real life experience and the value of ready for digitalization, how it used in this kind of situation. So we can, during the QA, like we can take it further and discuss more. Over to you, Shiraz.
Thank you, Prasanna. You brought in a very good topic in your discussion about work from home. I don't think today we have time to go into very descriptive discussions of that. Maybe we'll try and organize another session or a webinar, because there is a lot of pros and cons in terms of working from home, especially security and hacking and all these sort of subjects that have been discussed around. Thank you, Prasanna. Going on, looking at the influence of digitization and social norms and the financial inclusion, we see customer behavior is going through massive shift as an impact of COVID-19. Financial institutions may not rely only on the past truths, but as caring institutions, they may also engage with customers for feedback beyond the usual channels to understand their social needs. During the peak period of the pandemic, we experienced a huge demand for cash amidst highly publicized market of digitized banking solutions. Prasanna, of course, touched upon this as well, especially within the lower income sector, which may also be unbanked. We also realized that digital payment mechanisms needed to get to the lower end of small scale business spectrum. Dr. Ziyaad, if you can very fast give your opinion, how could currently in progress transformation initiatives and future digitization initiatives influence financial inclusion and change social norms within such customer segments and improve their banking experience? Doctor.
So very briefly, there are two segments that we need to focus on for transformation. One, we talk about the lower income groups, particularly those that are financially excluded currently. And here we need to look at existing models that have been successful, like M-Pesa in Kenya and other models, to see how we can actually reach those that have been financially excluded due to specific reasons. And here, I want to stress that statistics show that a large amount of those financially excluded happen to be because they prefer interest-free banking. So in Africa, in Asia, or particularly in Africa, you will find that large parts of Nigeria, Niger, etc., West Africa would not be financially included simply because they do not accept the interest-based system. So the digital transformation has to take place with principles in place. And here we need to provide choice to customers. And if they want interest-free banking, we have to provide them with what they prefer. It has been successful in a number of countries. The second segment I want to quickly highlight on is who we refer to as the SEs, or social entrepreneurs. A social entrepreneur has a business that provides or earns profit, but at the same time, it creates social impact. So he does good for society. Now, the thing is, during COVID, there have been many SEs that have actually had to close shop because they only had a physical, kind of a presence. So here banks can offer SEs with assistance through financing, but also assist them to become digitally ready for offering delivery services, etc. And I want to mention one strategy, a digital platform for SEs, not only SEs, but also micro enterprises, to be able to use as a network for financing, for acquiring financing. But the future is no longer looking at track records of financing, because these social entrepreneurs have not used financing before. So we are talking about or suggesting a digital platform that looks at alternative credit scoring methodology, things that are used currently in China and in the US, in Germany as well, to look at social norms and character that can be picked up from, through artificial intelligence, to be able to create credit scores to allow banks to provide finance to them and support them over the period. So I'm going to leave it there for now.
Thank you, Doctor. That was interesting discussion. Moving on, we'll look at the digital channels with help of institutions both meet changing customer needs and expectations and prepare for future industry disruption. The bar for digital excellence, already high before the pandemic, has gone through the roof. Many organizations, be it financial or other, from mobile carriers to food delivery, have made targeted investments to build or augment their digital capabilities. Several themes have emerged. Successful institutions have used an agile interactive approach and design thinking to identify new digital opportunities beyond their comfort zones. These institutions also emphasize digital opportunities that strengthen their core business and lay the groundwork for larger digital transformation. Riza, if you can enlighten us very quickly on the initiatives taken by the financial industry in Sri Lanka to bring in efficiency and agility in their digital transformation projects that are expected to positively impact customer experience and attract new customers to engage the digital experience. I mean, I am asking you this question as you are one of the leading suppliers of digital services to the banking industry. These are all yours.
Thanks, Shiraz. I think very pertinent question. I mean, we're talking about digital transformation, and the question always is, what's the ROI? What's the effectiveness of all what we are doing? So I'll take that particular point. To bring efficiency and agility in digital transformation projects, organizations need to focus on all the forces that we spoke about, right? So people, process, technology, right? So initially we spoke about the technology piece, and you alluded to some concepts like agile and design thinking. And I really wanted to actually touch on that in a little more detail. So from a experience concept like design thinking and agile, they are helping to drive this whole efficiency and agility of this whole transformation process. So say, for example, if you take the digital transformation, it's not something that we do big bang, right? It's a journey, and it cannot be like implemented just over period of time. It's something that you have to evolve, you have to keep innovating, right? So since organizations have found it difficult to drive such transformation is why we see a lot of these fintechs also emerging, right? To provide these services to meet the new customer expectations, right? So since these innovations are not happening fast enough, we are leaving room for others to come and provide those services, right? So in some cases, we also find conventional banks partnering with fintechs to drive this transformation much faster. And we are seeing that even in Sri Lanka, right? Let's look at how design thinking helps, right? So it basically looks at how organizations can cater to the changing demands and expectations of the customer on a continuous basis. So the methodology focuses on addressing the customer experience and working backwards so that it takes a outside-in view, right? Now, the process ensures that all stakeholders are involved, including management, the users, the product designers, IT, the customers also, right? From a targeted segment. And it begins with understanding the persona of the customer we are trying to serve and the problem we are trying to solve, right? So we are very focused on what we are trying to achieve. As a result, we kind of are more efficient in getting to where we want to get to, right? So once we have this concept in place, by leveraging several techniques that we use in sessions like this, like envisioning, brainstorming, prioritization, right? We can arrive at a prototype. And very importantly, what we look at is a MVP, a minimum viable product. And that comes from the technology industry actually, right? And that's what Agile drove that, right? So that rather than thinking of building a monolithic application, you start building more iterative outputs, which gives you more value in a quicker time, right? So these agile methodologies are leveraged to build the solution and go to market within maybe 12 to 14 weeks, or sometimes shorter, sometimes depending on, right? So this approach helps to learn fast and fail fast, right? And refine and build iteratively to more complete production solutions, right? So actually most organizations today, if you take even in Sri Lanka, have adopted most of this design thinking and agile concept. They have trained their people, right? People have even, gone to, specialized courses, right? So that they can drive these initiatives within the organization, right? Because external person can't come and do this for you, right? Yes, you can have consultants and you can have technology companies support you, but this is something the organization needs to drive with the support of course, your partners, right? I want to highlight one important thing, right? See, when we talk digital transformation, we have to go back to basics, right? Why are we doing all these things? We are doing all these things to be relevant to our clients, right? And to be competitive, right? So it's not just about technology. It's about what do we need to do to be relevant to meet the complete requirements of our client, right? I'll take a good example, right? If you take the online stores that emerged with the internet, right? And with electronics and things like that coming online, what do we really do? When we want to buy something expensive, we would go to the physical store, look at the product, understand the features, compare the products, and then we would pick out our phone, go online and check what this product would cost online, right? And invariably, it's cheaper, right? And what do? We buy online. So what do physical stores then gain, right? So I was kind of thinking about this, and this example came out when Amazon came out with their marketplace for books and electronics. The then electronic stores like Best Buy faced a huge challenge, right? Because people come to Best Buy to see the product. So they are kind of doing the services of showing the product, but the customer is buying from someone else, right? So this was a huge problem during the time when Amazon launched. And I think there was enough of case studies about it where they almost, eliminated most of these electronic stores. Most of them went out. Best Buy still exists. Why did they exist? Because they started thinking very differently, right? They started looking at why do we exist, right? What is our utility? So when they looked at it, they felt when somebody wants to buy something expensive, they wouldn't just go and buy online. They would go into a store, they will look at it, they will understand the product, right? And they will buy online because the cost is less. So when Best Buy looked at this in more detail, they found it that if we don't have this store, who is going to lose out? Customer is going to lose out because they have no place to go and look at it. The OEM suppliers are going to lose out because they can't demonstrate their product. Right? So what did they do? They went to these OEM manufacturers, especially the Samsungs of the world and LGs of the world, right? And they negotiated with them and said, okay, you need to showcase these products to your customers, and that's what we do. So you need to pay. So they started renting their space. So if you would go today, you would see areas for LG, areas for Samsung, and so on, right? Now those space is paid for by the OEM, right? Sometimes even manned by them, right? So that was a new revenue stream that physical stores started generating, which enabled them to match online prices, right? So if you would see today, Best Buy would say, I would match your price. So not only did they provide that service, they also understood what this customer wanted, right? They wanted this physical service, personal service, they also wanted the cost to be the same, right? So understanding this whole process made the whole business model much more effective. And they, as we know, they turned from the red to a positive, I think just over a year or so, right? So what I wanted to iterate here is technology is not the only thing. Technology is only the enabler, right? It's about how do we rethink what our utility is, what is our core business, what do we know, right? Why do we have customers, right? So with that thought, I think leave it to all of you to rethink how banking can be done better, and I'm sure all of you will want to look at it that way. With that, I'll hand over to Shiraz and take any questions later onwards.
Thank you, Riza. To have a bit of a global perspective to the same question, Aslam, given your vast experience and in transformation and rapid automation projects globally, can you share some thoughts on the need for efficiency and agility in such digitization initiatives within a rapidly changing environment, such as what we are facing today? Aslam, very quickly, Aslam.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're clear.
Okay, good. Riza has done my part of my job, so I can take much shorter time. Let me make a couple of statements. I think agility and efficiency were important yesterday. They are important today, and they'll be important in the new context of post-COVID also. So these are two sides of the coin, where if you're not efficient and agile, you will simply not be competitive, period. So I don't want to turn this into a COVID-19 discussion. This is a discussion about the basics of business, and being efficient and being agile is very basic to being in good business and so on. The problem for bankers is that in the past, the customers stuck with them. Now in the new world, the problem is that it is more difficult for banks to hide their inefficiency or their lack of agility. Customers will find out faster because they're sitting in the sofa trying to figure out how good you are. They don't have to visit your branch to go through the painful experience. And guess what? If they find that you are less efficient and less agile, how easy it is for them to switch. So they can easily switch to your competition. So with those two general remarks, let me spend a minute each on efficiency and agility. Efficiency is not about simply automating a bad process. Automating a bad process is a bad idea. What you really need to do, as Riza said, is try and understand what the customer is doing and try and find a better way of doing that. Digitization is an opportunity to both improve and automate the process. And it has got to be done end to end, because if you only do the front end or the middle end or the back end, it simply will not give you the benefit that you're looking for. So important thing is that as you process automation takes place, it has to be no handoffs, no manual inputs, no delays, and so on. If you do well on efficiency, what is going to be the result? The result is going to be improved customer experience, lower costs, reduced errors, and increased and improved compliance. So you're a winner. Let me now spend a minute on agility. Agility means rapid development. Agility means not running multi-year, multi-million-dollar projects. But as Riza said, if you want to fail, please fail fast. Don't waste your and my time. Move on to something else and so on. So moving from a multi-year, multi-million-dollar projects to minimum viable products, because the problem is when we try and develop a new product, we think we understand the customer. Half the time we don't. So what the rapid development and agile development does is it lets you develop something. It lets you test it very quickly with the customer. The customer then tells you what you got right and what you got wrong, and then you improve that. So it allows you not to have white elephants and multi-million-dollar and multi-year projects. It allows you to either succeed fast or fail fast. If you fail fast, you haven't wasted a lot of energy. So I'll summarize by saying that efficiency and agility were important, are important, will always be important, and they are two sides of the same coin. Over to you, Shiraz. I saved you 1 minute.
Thank you, Aslam. That was kind of you. Anyway, it was good discussion on that. By the way, we will have the opportunity to listen to Aslam again tomorrow when he makes his presentation on another interesting topic, digital transformation of business process end-to-end. That's on day 2 of the conference. Moving on to the last topic of our discussion today. The general understanding today is that the so-called neobanks and fintech startups are attempting to do to the banks what Uber has done to the taxis, or what Facebook and Google have done to the newspaper publishers. Yet, opinion in the investment world is divided about whether the neobank can pull off their big plans. While major banks face plenty of challenges, do these startups really stand a chance against the might of the more established big brothers? Prasanna, I would like to pick on your brains on this question, quick answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Riza. I can answer this question in one sentence. How, as Riza said, how to do bank indifferent. This is the living example, neobanks. But let me explain a bit of a detail. During the last decade, neobank penetration has grown like exponentially. I mean, we cannot deny that if you see the number of neobanks which is available in the market. But what have they done differently compared to their big brothers? Simply, they have identified the gaps and problems and pain points in traditional banking and grown while embracing the innovation and new business models. So that's what they have done differently. Like actually, they have disrupted the traditional financial ecosystem. I mean, whether we like it or not, that is the fact. And they alerted and forced the big brothers to align their strategies and I mean, look into a different way. If you take, I mean, let's take a few examples from UK, like which is a mature market. I mean, 4-year-old neobank called Monzo, they have rose 151% year on year, like install penetration. And Starling, one of the oldest neobanks, grown 97% year on year. If you take Revolt, that banking with debit cards, like grew 67% year on year. So these are few prominent examples, but some people say like it's just the installation. Actually, it's not the installation. If you take the daily active users, that is, they have grown rapidly during this period. And traditional banking DOE has declined compared to neobank. Basically, if you take traditional bank website traffic has declined by double digits. If you like 2017, 18, and 18, 19, like HSBC has experienced a minus 22%, where Lloyd Bank has experienced minus 29%. So these are the like examples like to show that it has made an impact. However, there are some dependencies like mature market, the market segment. If you take growing markets such as Sri Lanka, we are a bit lenient into traditional banking, but the trend is shifting. Let me explain why. So who's responsible and accountable for this trend shift? Actually, like you don't need to go far. Like if you have, I mean, young kids, like grown-up kids at home, and you will realize based on their behaviors, what do they like to do most? Yes, the millennials, so-called millennials, they're increasingly grabbing the attention of the banking industry because they are techno-savvy. They need things faster, freedom and flexibility. So this is the way to go on when it comes to the banking. So based on the analysis done by neobanks, the majority customer segment is millennial, then the Gen Z is like people who's between 15 and 22 in this year. And they are on the track of becoming the large workforce in any country. Like it shows clearly how this trend is, why this trend is shifting. So if you draw some conclusion on this digital bank with no branches, they're set to win the race. So, I mean, rather they are winning it now also, because as I articulated, those are the facts, like given live facts, and they have shown it clearly. But what is the edge of traditional banking? Their product, the depth knowledge of the product, like because it was evolved long years and they know what to do and what not to do. Those products are matured and they have the regulatory credentials. They have the entire product portfolio where like neobankers don't have this knowledge and experience available with them. So what could traditional bank should do to keep up them this phrase? So either they can complement or they can collaborate. So if you take them, like if you take the neobanks, because they have the technology where a traditional bank has the experience and the logics. So you use neobanks for your front end. Like, okay, you tell them to do my onboarding, do my credit appraisal, because they have the eKYC, they have the artificial AI-based credit appraisal. You give the logic, traditional bank can give the logics to them, they develop it for you, you onboard it from them, and use them as your front end. And traditional bank, you process the data for them, and end of the day get the data set also. That is then the traditional bank also have the best of the both worlds. Like if you trying to team up with them, like but sometimes the traditional bank may have to do some tweak on their core banking solution to expose their APIs and team up with the neobank. So what could they? So on the neobanks, they are the front end. So what they can do is through neobank, they take the onboard the customer, and traditional bank expose their APIs to the neobank. Okay, if you want savings account, if you want FD customers, use our API. You do the job for you, and we end of the day we process the data for you. We create the contract and we create everything. You don't have to think of how this logic works, how the interest calculation works, how the OD interest works. You don't have to do anything. You expose my API, they onboard it, I process the data for you. End of the day, traditional bank has the data set of the neobanks, what they are hardened certain customers. So they can get that very easily. So these are the things that, as Riza said, how do you do banking differently? So if you take an example, like even us, like we have the wealth of experience in our market segment when it comes to microfinancing and non-banking financial institute. So what we also thought about it long ago, and we use some of our homegrown homegrown core banking system. Now what we are doing is we are revamping our core banking system to be in this segment, and we are looking at open API banking, cloud enabled banking. So I can serve the traditional bank and I can serve the neobanks as well. End of the day, we use our experience, neobanks is complementing us. So these are the living examples. These are not theoreticals or like a concept. These are being used at this moment. Yeah. So hope like I did some justification on this. Like we can, like this is a vast subject. I have so much of information if required. We can discuss further. Over to you, Shiraz.
Thank you, Prasanna, for that analysis and sharing of your experiences. We will move to the last part and the last question for this discussion. Dr. Ziyaad, in your opinion on fintech startups, should the financial industry compete, collaborate, or complement with them, considering they are already built up custom experience and expectations?
Or go by them?
Well, I don't think there is a choice for the financial services industry. They've got to play ball and they've got to be able to compete. And they were playing the game of survival for so many years. And now the new kid on the block has disrupted the market, as the honorable panelists have stated already. So you have to compete. But how do you compete with such a nimble little boat? Because you are a very big ship. In order for you to change direction, you will take quite a few years. And then even you still have a lot, left over in the hull. So the challenge here is, if you want to have a proper digital strategy as a financial services institution, you have no choice but to collaborate. Otherwise, either you collaborate or try and buy them off, but they're quite smart in this instance. They know exactly what the potential is out there. We work with some startups right now on peer-to-peer financing and B2B financing as well, based on Sharia compliant finance. And they don't want to be involved with banks because they believe they will be larger than banks going forward. And now it's banks that have to convince them to say that why don't we collaborate? Because they know that to compete with them becomes very, very difficult. A 10-member fintech team can do what a 1,000-member full-fledged bank can do. So these numbers are staggering, and the impact on the economy from a social perspective is also huge. So I think that economies need to think out clearly how this can be done. And I'll end off by giving you an example of what is done in Malaysia. In Malaysia, there is a strong approach through government agencies to assist fintech startups to be able to develop their technology, to be able to build their businesses through mentorship programs, which are being offered as well elsewhere. But here, there is also an encouragement for financial institutions to actually look at different aspects that these fintech startups are offering in order to collaborate with them and incorporate different elements, which include regulatory technology, credit scoring, offering SMEs financing through blockchain technology, and all being back office. There's one last point I would like to mention, Shiraz, and something that we've left out actually a lot, and that is the issue of sustainability and social inclusion. Here we look at philanthropic kind of approaches and strategies, zakat platforms that can collect zakat, adequately monitor the zakat through the process, distribute the zakat to the eligible recipient. All of that can be tagged on to a bank because the bank account is held at the bank, but the collection and distribution is done through a separate fintech startup. So social finance that can actually integrate with banks has to happen. Banks are not known for their their social initiatives. They are known for their profit initiatives. So that's not a problem. They can actually bring in these social enterprises, fintech startups, so that they can take care of that aspect and that element to have a proper, holistic, comprehensive ecosystem where everyone can be empowered, inshallah. I will leave it there. Thank you very much, Brother Shiraz.
Thank you very much, Doctor. That was once again a great feedback from you. Thank you. We will, of course, have the privilege of listening to Dr. Ziyaad again tomorrow at the opening session of the day 2 of the conference on a very interesting topic, Sharia implications in using AI and robotics in banking processes. That must be an interesting presentation to watch. Coming to the end, a big thank you to my panelists for spending their valuable time and engaging in this valuable discussion. And thank you to all those who logged in as attendees in this session. Thank you, Prasanna. Thank you, Riza, both from Sri Lanka. Thank you, Professor Ziyaad from Malaysia. And thank you, Aslam from UK. Thank you very much. And I hand over to the conference host.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody, for that very interesting line of session. Various topics discussed, a lot of experts, a lot of knowledge being shared. I would like to thank all our panelists once again, Mr. Aslam, Aziz, Dr. Mahomed, Ziyaad, Mr. Prasanna, Siriwardena, and Mr. Riza, Wadood, including our moderator, Mr. Shiraz Sideek. Thank you very much.
Before I come to our deposit base, I would like to mention Mudaraba profit returns are the most, I think, one of the most affected areas due to this pandemic. As you know, our incomes are got delayed, most of the finance companies or banking institutions, and there's a direct impact of Murabaha or Musawama income because it won't come within this moratorium period. So there were so many complicated. As a result, the distributable income, which is there to be shared between the investor and the company, can be reduced because of this problem. But Alhamdulillah, as far as CS Islamic finance concerned, we experienced during past 9 to 12 months a surplus of distributable income when comparing to central bank threshold rates. We were always above the central bank ceiling rate, which are permissible to distribute to the customers. Therefore, with the permission of the Sharia Supervisory Board, we created the reserve called Profit Equalization Reserve, and we parked our excess profits in that particular fund. So we have been, even though there were little bit of an effect due to this pandemic to our overall distributed income, we managed to take out some funds from this profit equalization reserve and to distribute our Mudaraba depositors. And currently, still they are enjoying the highest returns in this finance industry up to date, which we have been maintaining throughout the period. Especially in this pandemic period, we have not experienced such large withdrawals from our customers. There were few withdrawals, but up to now we managed to retain our Mudaraba base without any problem.